Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we'll be talking about CSGO team roles. This is an interesting topic, and I wouldn't say this is basically something that people talk about a lot. I think it's more talked about in the pro level, but it's something that definitely needs to be done in every team. And it's not just like deciding who will be opping and who will be entering and those kind of stuff. I'm talking about more of the structure of the team. How do you want to build the team, and who has a higher voice than who is making the decision mid game, and who is making generally the final decisions outside of the game, as well as how you should be having discussions, making sure that they're productive, and making sure everybody is just heard. We're going to go over about the roles, and we're going to be talking about the importance of them, as well as how some teams are structured. Give some examples. Again, this is kind of like the last video. Not everything here is black and white, like pretty much straightforward. Everything is kind of like vague. You have a lot of gray areas. Anything can change. Obviously, CS is very dynamic and it can just move a lot, and anything can change at any certain moment. But generally, I'll try to give you guys a good picture of how some professional teams do it, and how you should be discussing that topic inside of your team. So basically, again, it's gonna be like how to make proper decisions within the team, who has the bigger voice, and who is in charge, quote unquote. So yeah, basically that's the intro. So let's just jump right into the video and start discussing. All right. So right here is just an example. I got a couple examples here, and I'll talk to the graph in a way. It's not really a graph; it's just a sheet. It will also be linked down below. But we'll be covering pretty much each column here, and we'll be talking about what do I mean by that, about the structure of the columns and why did I do it exactly like that. So again, most of the teams, they're gonna have an IGL, a captain, right? They're gonna have a coach. You're gonna have your upper. You're gonna have your entry. You're gonna have your support-ish, the third man in, and you're gonna have your lurk. Again, the roles nowadays are not really titled, let's say. Only the upper and the IGL, pretty much. But generally speaking, everything can change in every certain moment. But I'll explain why I put it like exactly in that order in this exact example. And I'll talk about the roles a bit. Okay, so obviously the IGL is the in-game leader. He decides when to call stuff. He's the main caller in game. Mid-run calls, deciding what to do at the certain round. The coach, again, obviously everybody knows what a coach is. A coach is someone that helps the team and helps the IGL to work on certain stuff, fixing mistakes, making sure that they're prepared and ready, and that they are always focused at all times, making sure everything is productive, and he's basically helping the IGL. Now I put in the upper here. I'll explain why in a second. But an upper, everybody knows, picks up the big green. I'm sorry, and he's focused on basically getting the entries, or just supporting his team. Again, everything is vague, but right here, for example, a lot of teams, they use their upper as the main support player. He'll be throwing the nades during an execute. Um, the support is kind of more like the third man in. He's throwing like some sort of util and then going in and entering with the pack with a three. So Lurk, obviously pretty self-explanatory. He's usually on the other side of the map, creating presence, coming back sometimes to execute with the team. Sometimes like lurks late, goes out to take timings and stuff. Pretty much self-explanatory. Support, already touched on that. A guy was usually the third man in, throwing some sort of set of util, and he's usually the trader. This is basically, I'd say, the star role of a team in terms of a rifler. And then we have the entry. Now, you guys will notice here that I put only one entry because most of the teams nowadays, they use their IGL as the entry, which is really, really smart, as the IGL will get all the action together with the second entry, and he will be able to understand how many numbers there are in certain places. Although there are still some IGLs that do the support role and the lurk role sometimes, but I'd say generally the IGL should be always in the action, and he's kind of like the second entry. And the first entry is obviously the guy that goes first, who gets information. Now, the most important thing about an entry, you don't have to force yourself to get kills. An entry is basically a guy who gathers information uh, as quickly as he can, communicates to the team, and gets traded eventually. All right, now that we pretty much went over the roles, again, not really in depth, but just went over the roles, I'll explain the column. I'll go from the top down. So basically what I want to talk about today is how to make decisions in the team during a game and post game when you guys have discussions and server work. So obviously I put the IGL and the coach on the top. The far more right is pretty much the top of the column. So the IGL obviously should have the utmost voice in the team in terms of making decisions and deciding what to do next. And the coach is right there with him, working alongside with him, and those two are basically uh, quote unquote the guys who are making the decisions on the team, right? They're the guys who, at the end of the day, have the last voice and the last call on if you are going to do a certain thing or not. During a game, usually it's the IGL. Outside of the game, it will be usually the coach and the IGL. But generally, those guys have the last saying on everything. Those guys approve and disapprove things that the other players want to do. Now in this column, I'll put the opera here because again, you can utilize your opera in a lot of scenarios. So your opera can be kind of like your secondary caller. He can obviously go for peak. Some again, depending what opera do you have. Some operas like device like to be a bit more passive and don't tend to go for opening frags as much. But then you have the operas like Simple, like Shiro that they are pretty aggressive, and right here I put it like as the simple of the team. So he would go for peaks, he would search for an entry. Obviously you want to utilize your op as much as possible, so being aggressive at the beginning is really good, and making that like initial call, and then the IGL can call around it. So basically the opper has some sort of a voice in terms of calling right here, that it's above the guys in the first column, just because he is able to utilize a much a more expensive gun, as well as some operators just have that voice, that secondary voice on what they want to do, and the IGL can basically form a game plan around it. Obviously, it takes time, but generally the operator can call for a peak or late round even like clear an angle, say okay I can walk down banana and clear the angles and stuff. And he's basically kind of like the secondary caller in this example. So right here again we said the IG and the coach ultimately have the last saying, and the operator is right beneath them. He has a saying also in practice. He would like show stuff and stuff that he wants to do, and everybody would have a discussion. But obviously, like he as the opper will decide what he wants to do with the knob. Now I put the lurk support and entry right here. In terms of voices, they'll all pretty much have a similar voice. Again, anybody can call in any scenario. I'll give an example, like if the lurk finds some sort of information, gets a kill, knows the side is open, he can call and be like, guys, come back, which is pretty common, I'd say, but generally, those guys will have a voice, but the voice will be less heard. They would more give suggestions rather than actual calls. They will be like, "This is clear," or "I killed this guy, and we should go here." And then the IGL or the coach, if he's allowed to talk, would say, "Yeah, let's do it," and kind of confirm that call. But yeah, it should be kind of like in a structured way that you guys know who has the uh, decision making of the team in certain scenarios and who needs to approve. So on those three roles right here, the IGL or the coach will approve it if the coach can talk during the game. And the operator would be still able to make calls, but obviously he won't be the one approving. Uh, he will be able to just make the calls and being listened to. So generally, like that's, I'd say, a graph that shows most of the teams. Again, the IGL is the first or second entry to be in that pack, and if the Lord calls something and the IGL will be like, yeah, okay, then everybody comes back and they do start and execute. But again, the Opera here has a voice, and he can pretty much force a call that the IGL will have to call around later on. So yeah, so that's like basically the first example, and why you should be doing that. Basically. what happens a lot of the times in lower tier teams, from my experience specifically, is that those teams tend to get clustered in the TeamSpeak or the Discord, whatever you guys use, and kind of like have too many decisions at a time. Makes the players very confused, and also there's no real structure. Some guys will say we should do this, we should do that, and basically again, the IGL should be trusted. And even if you guys think it's a bad call, you guys can tell him later, and you can tell him how to fix it, but never doubt your IGL. Um, Again, that's pretty much like in game. Now, outside of the game, how I would have a discussion in that specific column is, again, the operator would show his things. We already spoke about that. The agile and the coach obviously bring the game plan, but those three should have a similar voice to everyone, and it should be an open discussion on making those plays, those things you guys go through, also valuable to them. That means that they're comfortable doing it, they're confident in doing what they're supposed to be doing, and if they're not, they can come up with solutions and make sure that those specific things that everybody shows fitting them and their playstyle, and if not, make those changes and have an open discussion. Obviously, the IG on the coach should be understanding and accept that, and also make sure that the game plan is built around the team that you are in and not around any other team. Yeah, so this is the example, the first example. I have three examples. I'll go over the second right now. Okay, so this is the second example. I just switched the lurk and the op, and I'll talk about why. Um, Basically, some offers, again, more passive offers, will tend to just be secured around offers, and they would, just support generally on CT side and T side. They won't look for peaks. They will play passive, and that would be the guys who pretty much secure post plants, secure angles, and don't really go for those aggressive stuff, which is still okay to utilize your op and make sure that you get those important kills. Even if you get a kill per round, it's still very, very impactful, maybe two. But right here, I put the lurk instead of the opera. So right here, the lurk would have a higher voice, like we spoke about before. He would have a higher voice over those three guys right here. He would kind of be able to make mid-run calls. A lot of the teams also have that. They have their lurkers making mid-run calls according to what they hear on the other side of the map. So pretty easy example is Inferno. If you have your lurker in apps and your RGL is working banana, and your lurker hears someone rotating off of A, he can easily call, okay, let's do a lane pop or an R trap or something amongst those lines, as well as if the lurk hears that the op shot is on B, he kind of can tell that there's no opener in A and it's safer to like go wrap around site and take those long range duels with AKs versus M4s. So he would be kind of like the second voice. Usually those lurkers tend to be really smart, so it's really easy for them to make those decisions mid round. It only depends on their voice. In terms of the server work, it still says the same. In terms of the column, the lurk, which are examples of how like what mid-run calls he would do. The opera would still show what he wants to do, but he would kind of like get an idea from everyone else. And the IG and the coach pretty much stay the same throughout every column that I will show you guys. So this is the second example. I just wanted to speak about that and focus on the lurk as the main guy who is making the mid-round decisions. So this is pretty much self-explanatory. I'm gonna go over to the third column right now. Alright, so this is the third column. Right here, we're gonna see the IG and the coach in the same position. Again, nothing changes here, but we're gonna see the op and the lurk on the second column right here. Why did I do that? So, as I gave an example on the lurk can make a lot of mid-round decisions off of information he gets on the other side of the map, where the op can still go for picks. That's when like you have a lurk who's making mid-round decisions, and an op who likes to be aggressive and makes those decisions as well. So the op would be able to call what he wants to do and show on the server what he wants to do, as well as the lurk, he would be able to mid-run call, and sometimes the agile doesn't even have to work as much if the op goes to the side of the lurk and the lurk decides to make some sort of a decision. Right here, the supporter and the entry are two guys that quote unquote left out. Their voice will be heard a bit less. Again, it's a team and everything needs to be structured in a way where you guys know who's making the final decisions. What I mean about heard less is more of in a suggestive way rather than a calling way. The lurk would still have a way to kind of like make a decision mid game where the entry can give more of a suggestions, be like, we should do this. I got a kill, I'm gonna take this, and then the IGL would say, okay. Same thing with the support. But the lurk and the op here still have the utmost right to take decisions, basically. Alright, so those are pretty much the three examples that I wanted to show. Uh, yeah, let's go to the outro. I'll summarize everything and make sure that you guys understand everything. Alrighty, thank you guys for watching the video. Again, this is more of how you should structure a team in terms of roles. Why you should do that is that you won't have any clashes when you playing specifically, but also when you're going through a server work. You need to make sure that everyone knows on a level who is the decision maker of the team. And it's not about having power or having some sort of an advantage over someone. It's basically something that happens in every sports team if you see that way. You have the playmaker, which is the IGL right here, for example. So he has the utmost more power uh, out of everyone basically, and the coach is right there with them. Usually in sports and real sports, quote unquote. Esport is a sport, but in real sports like basketball, like football, soccer, whatever you guys call it, the coaches have the power, right? The coaches decide the plays, the coaches decide who is in, who is out, and then the captain is right below them. Right here, I'd say that the IGL and the coach are right there together, as Counter Strike is basically uh, a game that you guys need to work together in order to achieve certain things as the IGL and the coach. So they're right there together in terms of decision making. And then obviously you have the guy that needs to kind of like chime in and help. And those guys who give suggestions. But you guys need to make sure so you guys won't have any clashes going forward is that you guys structure it in a way that everybody knows whose role is to do what in terms of calling and in terms of making decisions in the team and outside of the team atmosphere as well. What I mean is outside of the team atmosphere is like when you have chats, when you have server work and stuff like that, and in game, who's making the decisions in game. So you guys won't have any clashes, and everything will be more structured, and there will be less fights as well. You guys just need to make sure that it's pretty known who has the highest power and the lowest power. And as I said, you guys need to respect your IGL as much as you can during a game. If he makes a bad call, I don't like really care. Like that's what I tell my team. Doesn't matter if he makes a bad call. You guys need to make sure that you guys are focusing on playing as a team. If he has a read and you guys think it's a bad read, but you guys play together as a team and you are confident in your IGL, there is still a high chance that you guys will win the round. Where if you guys start questioning everything and being like, no, we should do this. Um, Again, before the IGL calls, if you have a suggestion, you can call a suggestion, and usually the IGL would say yes. But generally speaking, again, the IGL has the utmost more power. Most of the teams have the upper right beneath in terms of peaks early on, and some teams have the lurkers as well. Now, again, roles are very gray in Counter Strike. You have the support who can kind of be like the entry as well, and the lurk can turn into an entry in a certain round, and everything like happens. It really depends in the round that specifically happens, and I'd say your IGL should be either the support or the entry, which I like my IGLs to be entries because they're in the action and they see what's going on the map, and then the lure can kind of give that information on the other side. But generally speaking, everything can change other than the upper, I'd say. Anything can change in terms of being an entry, being a support, or being a lurker. It really depends on maps and certain situations. I'd say that our entry sometimes on Banana is becoming a lurker in ways, and then our apps player on Inferno becomes the entry. Same on Nuke. It really changes in certain situations where the IGL decides to go back or he decides to make a mid-run call. So everything can change, as I said, but again, at the end of the day, you guys need to have like some sort of a structure in the team that you guys know, so you guys won't get into any arguments, especially during a game. And after a game, don't get into any arguments. You guys are a team. You guys have the same goal. You guys need to, rather than argue, make a healthy discussion and make sure that you guys respect each other. But because at the end of the day, you guys are spending a lot of time with each other, and you can't be spending time with people that you don't respect. So talk with your teammates in a respectful way, and make sure that you guys know who has quote unquote the more power in the team, and in terms of making decisions, and pretty much trust them. Make sure that you trust them, and if you give them a good enough explanation on something that you want to do or has been done something in a bad way, I'm sure that they will understand and they will listen to you. But just make sure that you guys know again that structure that you guys want to put. All right, this is pretty much a different video from videos that you guys see on YouTube. I really hope you guys enjoy that type of content. I really enjoy making that, kind of giving you behind the scenes of a professional team and some things that you guys can take to your amateur teams as well as some of the semi-professional teams that you guys have. And I'm really glad that some of you guys tell me that it helps you a lot. I really want to kind of like spread my knowledge a bit on YouTube. And if you guys have any ideas or any questions on what pro teams do, or some suggestions that you want to see from me, like YouTube videos and stuff like that, make sure you leave them down in the comments or DM me on Twitter. And yeah, thank you very much again for watching. Thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.